Welcome to Stoughton Media Access Cable's Community Forum Show. My name is Steve Kelley. I'll be your host today. And today we have the pleasure of bringing you Chairman Robert O'Regan from Stoughton Selectmen Council. So welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, and you're going to fill us in on the latest and the greatest, what's happening, and the focus of what the selectmen are working on now. How would you like to start?
I'd like to start to thank you for having me here. It's a great opportunity to go over some of the things and great things that are going on in the town. Not all of them are as visible as you'd like them to be. Not everybody has as much time to be as dweeby about government as some of us are.
Okay.
And so it's a great opportunity to talk about some of the things that are going on. And what we're trying to do is pay attention to what we hear from the public all the time are priorities. And what we're trying to do is do the kinds of things that selectmen and the Board of Selectmen can do, and maybe only in our kind of government a Board of Selectmen can do, and other things that others can do, find a way to get those done effectively. And if you zoom out a little bit and ask yourselves, why are we where we are and why aren't we further than we could be?
Okay.
One of the things that I think you'll see from our meetings since December is that we're trying to focus on policy developments and you know that under the town charter and the state law that governs town government, the Board of Selectmen, only the Board of Selectmen can handle. And so setting policy or setting priorities for town meeting, because the Board of Selectmen actually sets most of the agenda for town meeting. That's what a town meeting warrant is. So we're mindful of those things. We're mindful that there was a master plan. You and I were both on that master plan committee. So sure. Mindful that we've had a master plan in existence for about 3 years. And there are some policy decisions that need to be taken that only selectmen can do. There's initiatives to get things done that only selectmen can do. There are budgeting priorities and revenue generating opportunities that only the Board of Selectmen can sort of move along. And we have a great array of talent on the board. So with the other aspect that we're trying to do is play to the strengths of the board members. So let's take buildings. A priority we have is we see ourselves as, you know, the people's stewards of our public buildings.
Yes, managers.
Managers. I mean,
Sure.
Ultimately, you know, the town manager is the one physically responsible for making sure the buildings are there, but it's the selectmen who have the responsibility as elected officials to make sure our buildings are in good shape and that they're working well. And so one of the things we've started to do, we have a civil engineer on the board. So he's done the evaluations of buildings. He gets it. So we lean on him to help us with that kind of work. And in town meeting, we're trying to advance a couple of projects on buildings that really have fallen by the wayside. Right? If you fail to maintain, it costs you a lot to bring back, and you might lose the building. Well, he's able to help us there. We have, if you look at one of the priorities, is getting the downtown going. So in Christine Howe, we have somebody whose career is in planning. So we have sort of delegated her as our link to the redevelopment authority to help get all of that going. We have a number of financial control issues. If you look at our revenue and you look at how the budgets come together, every year we look and you're never going to have as much money as you would like, right? So we've got in Steve Cavey, we've got an accountant, very expert in systems and planning, and we look to him for that expertise. We have Rick Hill, who has been on FinCom for 9 years. He's in the finance world and budgeting world. He gets the big picture, and so we look to him, and he's on the high school building committee. He's driven to get things done. He's our link to the master plan implementation committee, and he's our link really developing to the planning board. So what we're doing is getting these kinds of links going to leverage what we can do as a board with the various parts of town government to move things along. So and I think that's different from how the boards have functioned in the past.
Right, I was going to ask you, so how is this a little different from where the board had been, let's say, a year ago or 2 years ago?
Well, I'll let people decide for themselves by going on the SMAC website and looking at selectmen's meetings from a year ago.
Okay.
You will not see selectmen's meetings where this chairman will have police officers there asking the policemen to clear the room of citizens at the meeting that happened. You'll not see, I think, people on this board swearing during meetings. You will not see people on this board cutting off or cutting down citizens who speak to us. That's different. I think you see this board focused and prepared, aware of the longer-term goals, and people can judge for themselves what prior boards did and didn't do. What I see in this board, and we meet almost every week. Our meetings are focused, and I circulate the agenda to the board. So either Wednesday or Thursday, the next week's agenda will be circulated ahead of time. That's a different practice. So everybody knows if there's something someone on the board or someone in town government wants to be addressed, they can weigh in as the agenda is being circulated, not to discuss it, but to say, can you put this on? In the beginning, in January, we had people come up with what I call a wish list, which is what are the priorities you would like to see. So for the past 5 months, we've been chipping away at the wish list, and when town meeting is over, we'll do that again. And so we'll spot on the agenda.
So let's get specific.
Items. Okay.
So you kind of told us about the process of getting to prioritize, but let's give us the actual priorities now. So what are they? You've mentioned
all of them.
Okay. Well, I think that gets you in trouble, though. I mean,
That's right. You can't do everything all at once.
All the things that need to be done.
Right.
But you really have to say, look, we're going to put them in order: 1, 2, 3, 4. What's number 1, 2, and 3? And can you like not admit to that, but almost like say, look, we have to do this first. What do you have to do first?
The number one priority in our town is looking at how we meet our revenue needs, because our tax revenue is not keeping up with the level of services we either want or now have. The word is it's not sustainable. The costs, if you look at costs in running your business, I know in running mine, you can adjust you can do things to enhance your revenue.
It's two-sided, right?
That's
You're
right.
either going to limit your expenses,
That's
right?
That's right.
Or you're going to increase your revenue. And in our business, it's a lot harder to increase revenue. In a sense, we really have to focus on how are we spending our money. Let's be smart about it.
On our side, we have, through the recession, town government really, pulled the belt pretty tight on staffing, both in the schools side and on the municipal side. In public safety in particular, public safety took a hit in its ability, and if you match up the kinds of responses, both in the kind and number of responses that public safety personnel have to deal with, they're more complicated. We didn't have an opioid crisis in 2008. We've lost positions on the police and fire department since then, but the demands on those departments are greater than they were before. It takes about it's different between departments, but before we put a firefighter or a police officer on the street, between training and equipping, it's an investment in that staff of about $150,000. Right? And then, but we need more. So we need more.
So if I could correct, I think you meant to say another year. You said 2008. You said we didn't have an opioid crisis in 2008.
We didn't have one in 2008. We do now.
Okay.
Okay, we didn't. And the consequence of that is there are demands on police and fire first responders to deal with opioid crises and the secondary effects of that. Crime, which beyond I think what we can get into, and all of that adds cost, and all of that adds demand. We can't not meet that. It's not an option for our community to say there's a call for help. But we don't have anybody to respond.
Right.
That's not an option.
Okay.
So when I say we need to match our revenue to our needs, that's an example. And when we go through matching revenue to our needs, one of the things that we started to do in this budget, because we had to, was because our revenue didn't look like it was going to be that good, we initially cut the assistant recreation department position. Well, that affects children and families quite a bit in the quality of life in town, but you have no choice. My view is we have to find a way to not do that. We have to be prudent in what we spend, right? Yep. But we also have to understand that in order to meet the needs and wants of the community, our current revenue and our current base for revenue isn't going to do it. So the number one priority is to improve the revenue stream. And that doesn't mean we raise taxes on the homeowner. It means we build our tax base. And what you and I saw when we worked on the Master Plan Implementation Committee is a number of ways, and you're a businessman, so you know there's a number of ways where we have this town laid out for zoning, operated for permitting, that make it frustrating or difficult to get new business and new growth.
Right.
That's the key. That's the priority.
So
and
if
you start there, then the number of things that flow from that, you break down the priorities. So that's the number one, is improve the tax base.
All right, so improve the tax base is number one. What's number two? And I like that, by the way. I think that if you can get good zoning, so is zoning, is that done before improving the tax base? Are we also saying, let's make sure that we've zoned places that will allow this to happen?
Zoning is necessary to get it done. Why? Okay. What folks who want to invest in want reduced risk, right? So if you have, let's take the cost of a commercial building. Not unreasonable to think that a commercial building investment might be in the range of $10 million for a decent-sized commercial building. Not unreasonable. We would like that investment in our town. Well, if you have $10 million, I hope you do. If you have $10 million, right? Can I have half? If you have $10 million and you have a map.
I don't know anybody with that.
And you have a map, or you have a syndicate or group of investors, okay, or real estate, or something, and you want to put $10 million to get a rate of return, you look at a map and you ask yourself, what do I want to build and where can I build it? So you get options. And then you look at the options on the map and you say soft costs. So what soft costs are, what do I need in lawyer bills, in design bills, in hearings before boards and committees, okay? And when I go through all of that process, how likely is it that I'm going to get permission to build what I want to build? We have to fix that so that if someone looks at a map and they want to invest, it's called as of right. If they look at a map as of right and they want to invest, they can look at our town and they can say, I can build what I'd like to build there, and the risks of getting it mucked up through government are low. I want to do business there. And that's all zoning. So what does it, give you an example in the downtown, okay? In the downtown, we have a zoning program that was tried several years ago, and if you look at what has and hasn't happened, it's really not working. It's really not working. It's discretionary permitting, project by project, and it's not working. So we want the downtown to work. Okay, zoning. What difference does it make? It improves the quality and character of life in town because we have a place we want to be and want to go to. It improves the tax base because if we develop the downtown, we get more tax money. It promotes the stability of the town because if it's a place where people want to stay and be, we don't have people moving to go somewhere else because they'd like to live in a better community. Means a lot, right? So if we can look at the downtown development zoning and decide what we want and make clear what the criteria are so you have more as of right development, that'll help get the downtown going. The same thing for other parts of town. And those are things that we're working on at the Board of Selectmen level. We've asked the Redevelopment Authority, because guess what this is? It's redevelopment. So we've asked the Redevelopment Authority to help us with getting these top priority areas of town looked at to deal with the economic development aspects of it. And we have, with the manager's direction, because we don't actually control employees, that's the manager's job. So, but what he's done in working on this is tasked Pam McCarthy, our economic development officer. So just to take this kind of thing. So we have a member of the Board of Selectmen as a liaison with the Redevelopment Authority, and we have an economic development officer coordinating all that activity. And those are things that are different today from how the Board of Selectmen was working a year ago. And you're starting to see some of the fruit of that. So part of that is, for example, one of the priorities of the master plan for the downtown, to make it more livable and a nice place to be, was to take a look at the post office site,
Yep.
which has an awful lot of pavement on it that isn't really used anymore for parking and sorting mail trucks. When we went through all that in the community forums, I don't know how many, we must have had a dozen community forums with hundreds of people coming, and the consensus from the town was, we would like to use that space better, and why don't we have some green space in the town? Green space makes it livable, it makes it a happy place, it makes it a community space, and it means people will want to come live and work and do business there.
You want it to be a destination.
So,
Okay, there's your key word.
So-
How do you create Stoughton Center to be a destination?
So even today, as we're recording this program, there are discussions with the post office. Today, they're happening, to acquire that site. And we're working with state and local government to develop swing space, to relocate our post office services, still in the downtown, but use that space better. And what that'll do is, my word is leverage. Leverage the usefulness of that space, enhance the quality of life. And I brought some pictures, which I can't call up on my computer.
Let's see if you can pull it up on the computer. That'll be great. So my understanding is that we need not only to get the square back in order, if you would, as you're saying,
Yep.
but also to get people to want to come there. How are you going to do that? And what about the pitfalls? I mean, this is a project that's been ongoing for 20 years. So how do you answer the pitfalls or the obstacles that are in your way?
First thing I want to do is to correct you. It hasn't been a project that's been ongoing for 20 years. It's been a project that's been talked about.
I'm going to correct you. I've been trying to get that cleaned up for 20 years.
It's a project that's been talked about. It's been talked about.
I've done more than talk. I mean, I'm there, don't forget.
But the town hasn't done anything. The town has studied it.
I don't mean to push you
No,
back.
all right. But the town has studied it to death, all right?
Okay,
The town
yes.
has studied it to death and it really done nothing, all right? So,
Yeah.
not enough. Let's say not enough.
Let's say not enough. It's been like a hard thing to get together.
Well, think about what we're dealing with, okay? We're dealing with a huge task. The downtown is a huge, intimidating task to take on. So,
Yes.
what are we trying to do? We're trying to break it down into smaller tasks that can be accomplished. Because that's, if you have a big decision to make or a big goal to achieve, and you roll back how it happens, you really don't make big decisions. You make a bunch of little decisions along the way.
I think you're articulating very well how it can be done.
And that's how.
So now we got to get it done.
So how do we get it done? We have, if we can look at this, one of the things. So
Call them out by number if you want, 'cause
No.
I'm sure somebody can
So-
read
so-
that. But
one of the things I hope the public can appreciate is, on the master plan and the downtown plan, we have two sets of work. We talking about it, two sets of work over the last 4 years or so that have been developed. One is the master plan, and then within that there was an economic development component for the downtown.
Okay.
That work, the taxpayers paid $100,000 for the whole town. So we're committed to getting that done. A priority for there was the downtown. The second piece was a redevelopment plan by the redevelopment authority. It picked up from the master plan and said, now that we have the sort of the big picture for the downtown, what do we do specifically to make the downtown work? And so from that, there are 8 steps that they identified, which I brought with me so people can see. And we're in the process of breaking each of these smaller steps down and getting them done. The Stoughton Railroad Depot and the adjacent parcel. We are day to day with the state on completing that acquisition. There's a technical issue with the deed, which should be solved. Greening of the downtown is the post office site that we've already been talking about. Mm-hmm. And what that promotes, number 3 on this, is looking at how Wyman Street is used as a channel for commercial activity.
okay.
And then number 4 is infill development, which is once we do that, we promote the development of the properties that match how we've looked and said this is what we'd like there.
And by promote the development, you're talking about hopefully streamlining the permitting process so that people can have confidence, the idea of someone with enough money to invest that would look at it and say, I'm pretty sure I'll get a good result. And I'm not going to have roadblocks thrown in front of me.
Or if I put the kind of project in on lot 1, okay, lot 2 is going to be matching what I'm doing and not different from what I want to do, because you want to promote
a certain
that
amount
fit.
of cohesion, yeah.
So these are the 8 priorities that our,
Let's continue. I think you got to 4, right?
I got 4. So this slide, which I hope folks can see, is how we've looked at where within the downtown we want to promote various ways for the downtown to be used. So we can direct the development. So you can see the Great Lawn is what we're talking about with the post office site, between the post office site and the railroad depot, to make that open space, to make it a nice place for people who want to live, work, and play.
Destination.
Destination.
That's
and
the
then
key word.
you see how in the purple space and the red space, strengthening retail, arts and entertainment. Well, all that loops up to the State Theater, which is they're really working hard to redevelop that site, and commercial activity along Wyman Street. And if you look to the north of the Great Lawn site there, you can see civic and residential, to build up the residential tax base, the residential base, to bring people in to live, because people living means it's a better place to be and to go, and it promotes commercial activity.
So do you get the sense from the board members, the other board members, 5 of you, that you're all on the same page?
Well, we all understand what the master plan, which has been adopted by the town,
Yep.
wants to accomplish. I don't think we all see getting there exactly the same way, because everybody's
so
different.
Ways, so if you gave me 2 ways, or even 3 ways that you're going to get there, how is it different so that you guys might be able to, unify that? So
one example, I'm a believer that the railroad station should be, the drop-off and pickup of passengers should be moved away from the current building, so that the train actually stops at Porter Street, and the platform is on that side.
okay.
I'm a believer in that because of some other stuff, and including
Where's Porter?
Porter is
Porter seems like it goes out.
Porter's the street that the post office is on.
Right. So you wouldn't have them drop off people there?
I would have the train stop there, and I'd move the platform where the parking lot is.
Farther down?
Behind the police station.
Oh, closer too.
Yeah, closer
Okay.
to the police station.
Okay.
And that would do a few things. It would reduce the number of intersections the train has to cross, so it makes traffic work better. It would allow us to recirculate traffic a little better over the right-of-way. It would reduce the number of places where the whistle blows, so you get quieter square for people who live and work in the square.
What about if they carry that all the way down to Raynham, for instance? Carry it down to Taunton. What if they do that?
That's where we're not quite on the same page.
It's a crazy thing to have that hanging over the
That's right.
town, isn't it?
And that's
Where's the governor on this, and where's Massachusetts on this in relation to Stoughton? Can you say at this point, or is it still too malleable?
It's too malleable, but that's one of the topics that we're working on with our delegation, and we're trying to set up a meeting with the Department of Transportation folks, with the MBTA, the governor's office, to have them understand that the delay in having the state make this decision, which is now going on 20 years, okay,
Yep.
is costing Stoughton Center, and we need them to make some basic commitments on whether and what they're going to do, so that our downtown can get unstuck. And we're working this. And that we had one meeting with Secretary Ash not too long ago. That produced some grant money to help us, and we're looking to pursue that. That's where that is, and that ties in with the greening of the square. So this is a concept drawing of how that could work.
Okay.
Right? So you can see from the potential uses what this could do for the downtown in how things come together. And if you compare that, if you're a bird and you're flying over downtown now, and you compare it with this, my guess is you'd rather land on what the picture is than what's there for you now.
So
that's what we want to do.
Take out some of the asphalt and put in
Take
more
out
greenery.
some of the asphalt greenery. make the traffic work better. You can see in this drawing, for example, that we're looking to reflow some of the traffic around the square to make it less of a, the way I phrase it, it's like trying to drive through an egg beater, right, because of the way the traffic works.
Yep.
And
Now,
all
what
of
are
this
the
is on
orange,
site.
what does the orange stand for or symbolize?
The orange on the building, you mean on the upper right-hand corner?
Well, there was greenery, and then there's orange as well.
The orange and the black are buildings. I believe the orange indicates new construction, and I believe the orange on the upper right-hand corner is Station 1, Fire Station 1.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to touch base a little bit on that? Because the Freeman Street Station, there's activity on that.
There's a lot of
Where's
activity.
the selectman driving that?
First thing we're doing is to zoom out and say, what do our public safety departments need? What do we want them to have? And so in early June, both the police and fire chief will be presenting departmental improvement plans to the Board of Selectmen. We have to get off of this cycle of every year, I need 2 more guys here, I need 2 more personnel here, because that's really difficult as a management tool. And if you can't line up revenue needs against year-to-year requests to basically...
You need a 10-year plan or something
basically,
like
you can't arm wrestle over how much money might be able to appropriate, because that's never satisfying to anybody. But particularly with public safety, and especially as the demands on public safety are more complicated, we want to get a better picture for staffing, training, equipment, and facilities. And so that'll happen in early June. From that, we already have a basic study done, a feasibility study for a public safety building. At the time, that was done a few years ago, both chiefs, and I think both chiefs now think the optimal facility would be a joint public safety building. There's many things of economy and coordination that can be improved with a combined public safety building. There's also views that say you don't want a public safety building. So the second nut to crack after we get the improvement plan is, what direction do we want to go on the facility? Now, in the meantime, Station 1 is deplorable. I don't think in private industry or private business you would find employees willing to work in those conditions like our firefighters have to go in for their careers in that building. And there are some practical safety issues, not to mention workability issues we have to address. So what we've done is, since January, we've examined Station 1, and we've been able to have Station 1 identified as a historically significant building, because it is. So since it's historically significant, that opens up other ways to finance what we need to do in the building. So the Board of Selectmen believes the building as it now stands is intolerable. We're going to either have to renovate it if it stays as a fire station, or move the fire department somewhere else. But structurally, the building is good. So what we're looking to do is, in the immediate term, make the building livable, habitable, functional, and safe. Do only what we need to do above that to make it good for its next use. Next use, whether it's a fire station or put out for other purposes. And because we were able to have it designated, which just recently, a few weeks ago, just happened, as a historically significant building, that opens up community preservation funds as a source to pay for it. One of the reasons we haven't done it before is, if you ask me, we haven't had the money in addition to the willpower to do it. So what we're working on now is to coordinate with the Community Preservation Committee and the Finance Committee to have immediate work funded through the Community Preservation Fund to make the building livable, habitable, functional, and take us through its next use, whatever it is. So while we're getting the future needs of public safety defined, we make the current operation of that building suitable. And then where they go, my own view is, I want to have, by this time next year, if you and I are doing this show again, we will have a decision made for town meeting to act on what we're going to do with the Freeman Street Fire Station. We'll either renovate it, expand it to make it useful, or we're going to move in a different way. Whatever we do, we'll need swing space for the fire department.
I have to tell you, you are well-versed, articulate extremely well this whole thing.
It's hard to follow.
It's like a Rubik's Cube.
It is.
It's like, it seems like there are so many facets of, when you looked at this, and you have to be careful because if you just try to pull the knot, you're just going to tighten it. So you've got to very carefully, let's say, unweave this whole thing, don't you?
Yeah, and it's intimidating because you spend time and you try to, how do we do this? How do we do? Where do we? And all of the parts in town government as you fit together.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. So we've talked about the post office. We've talked about Station 1. Right. So if we move on the post office and acquire it, we're going to have to relocate them somewhere. If we renovate the fire station, which I think if we're going to renovate it, we ought to commit to it, get the design done, and get working on it in the next year or two. Well, they can't run that as a fire station while we're doing that. Where are we going to put them? Right? So we need to look at our other resources to make that happen. And we have one. We have another resource. It's the armory. So if we look at the armory, this is the armory now, right? Okay. We bought the armory for $1.
Right up on Pleasant Street.
Right on Pleasant Street. We bought it for $1. I remember a town meeting when I think I was first elected, and I asked who's responsible for maintaining that building because it was empty. And what do you mean? The reaction from the front of the room was, what do you mean maintain the building? I said, who's responsible for making sure that the building is okay? What do you mean? What do you mean? Well, here's what happened to that building. Nobody cleaned out the gutters.
Yep.
The lease built up. The water backed up. We had ice dams, and so this basic floor plan, offices and space on the outside, a beautiful hall on the inside, the ceiling in there is a wonderful, you got to go in there to see the workmanship of that building, all right? So this is what it's become because of neglect. We haven't paid attention to it. And you can see sort of what the roof looks like. I think somebody like me forgot to turn off my phone.
So we'll hope that will exit for us.
Now, this gives us opportunities in this space for swing space. If we stabilize it, right? If we stabilize it, meaning we stop it from rotting and deteriorating, then we can look at it to be temporary space for the fire department if we move them. Temporary space for the police department if we decide to work on because that building needs work too. So that's your swing space.
That's
our swing space. So we do enough to have it not rot anymore because we're maybe close to losing the building because we haven't paid attention to it. Right? And then for the post office, if we do something different with the post office, then one option we have is to keep the retail and post office box space in the downtown.
Sure, I think you do want to do that.
We want to keep that, but the mail handling and sorting and loading the route trucks don't need to be done downtown.
Right.
Well, maybe we relocate them in the armory. Right? But we can't do that now because the building is unusable. We can't even present any of these as options because the building is unusable. So what the Board of Selectmen would like to do is this. About 5 years ago, the town established a building stabilization fund. And every few years we've been putting a little money into it. So what we'd like to do is take funds from the stabilization fund and stabilize this building, prevent it from being lost. And that gives us options for all these things. And then in the future, the longer term is we can use it if you want to call up this. We now have insufficient staff and resources for the Youth Commission and the Recreation Department. So those two departments can do great things for kids and for families in the town. The programming could be expanded. And so the longer term prospect for that building, with a little more investment, is to make a higher quality of life for the residents and a better place for the kids. And until we get there, we have an opportunity to use it as swing space to do the other things we need to do. And so this goes back to what I was saying before. A big outcome, a big goal, like doing the downtown, you really achieve by breaking it down into little tasks.
Absolutely.
If we move the post office, where do we put them? If we redo Station 1 because we need to, Where do we put them? And so what this board is looking at is how do we create options and opportunities, because I think the five of us understand no one's going to do that for us. We're not going to wake up one morning and read in the Stoughton Journal that someone has come into Stoughton and fixed it so that the downtown is restored, the fire station is rebuilt, and we have all the equipment. That's not going to happen. So we are looking systematically at these pieces of the puzzle and then trying to give us opportunities. So I said before, even today, there's a call with the post office about relocating them. What we'd like to be able to do is to say to them, we can move you in swing space to the Armory. Lots of room, we can get a place for you to be. But we haven't made those options for ourselves. And so to put it another way, back ourselves as a community into a corner and then wonder why there's no door. But, right, that's what we've done. And we can do better. And that's what we're committed to do, inch by inch. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's...
Yeah, I think as a taxpayer, you almost wonder why it hasn't been done already, though. I'm not saying you have to perform just because you're in the hot seat now after someone else was earlier, but I think there is a sense from taxpayers why hasn't this whole process been done all along? I mean, I think my sense of government, whether it's at any level, county, federal, state, is that, or very municipal, is that your role is to manage the resources of the taxpayer. It's almost like the business model is you exchange management for tax, right? So that if what you're saying is that this is a change in management, I'm curious, why wasn't it being done? So I'm not holding you to that, but I'm saying this. It's great that you're moving in that direction, but it seems like it should have been moving there anyways. That's good management, right? Let's get some good management here and make that happen. I'm sorry, I'm maybe putting you on the spot in a way, but I feel like is it reasonable to say that there's been failures that people haven't thought well enough, or what's going on?
I think that what you've just described is why the ballot box is so important to getting things done. I think if you go back over election cycles and positions, the people have decided one way or another to choose. Sometimes the choices have been made on one hot button issue, and that hot button issue hasn't necessarily been brought into focus with other priorities for the town.
Yeah, that cube that I'm talking about.
All right, and
Yeah.
So as a result, you might get a lightning rod on one thing, but what maybe voters first, not enough voters vote, okay, and maybe the voters who do vote put a higher priority on that one or two issue, and that means that the longer term things that need to be taken care of aren't taken by the voters as so high. So the people who are in office aren't the ones to do that. That's one. The other one is it's a lot of work. And what I think what we're learning as we go through this is there's a space for volunteers to do things. There's a nature of work that's appropriate to ask a volunteer to do. And then there's a level of responsibility to get it done that is unreasonable to ask or expect a volunteer to do. And then there's the practical end, which is if somebody, let's use the post office as an example. If somebody for the post office wants to get back to us about relocating, and you're a volunteer, and you're off with your grandchildren for the day, they're not going to get a hold of you. So we need to, and who's accountable, because you're a volunteer.
It's hard to make a volunteer accountable, it really is. So,
and we haven't looked at it as a system that way to get things done.
Is it possible, though, that the mayoral system is a better system? Because that is part of the reason, I mean, you guys are all, I've always felt this way about selectmen. They give so much of their time. And sometimes I feel like they get dissed very unreasonably for all of the hard work that's done.
I've heard lately it's our fault, for example, that there are no 4th of July fireworks. That's what somebody lambasted me about the other day. And
yeah, that's a shame.
But the truth of the matter is the police and fire department told us it's not safe this year to do fireworks because there's nowhere to safely put them off because of the construction that's going on.
Because of the high school.
Because
We haven't
high
even
school-
talked about
yeah,
the school.
but that's exactly what you're talking about, is we get, and you get used to it, and you can explain it. Once you explain these kinds of things, people are really good about understanding it, but not everybody, as I said before, dweebs down as much as some of us into this
So
stuff.
you've kind of dodged my question about a mayoral system, though. I am curious, and I'm not taking a side on this. I'm wondering, are we a sophisticated enough people, not different from New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Oklahoma, wherever, that we have found the most appropriate for the changing times form of government? So I'm just curious, what do you think of that?
I'm not sure with the size population we have. You got to look at, if you have and I don't mean to criticize anybody when I say this. We have a town of 27,000 residents. So how many citizens would be interested in running and being mayor, right? And so you have to look at what your...
At least half of those.
Yeah,
13,500.
So I think when you say a mayor, there's different mayor systems, and you need to look and see if you have a mayor system, what's the function of the mayor? Is the mayor who actually does the day-to-day running of the government, which is different from the policy end? I think probably the policy end, the mayor system, would probably be more efficient than what we've got now. But the beauty of the town meeting system is you really have the community weigh in. And you saw that with the high school project. So when the high school project came through, it first came through town meeting. And then it went to the voters. And the support for the need for the high school built within the neighborhoods, within the precincts, within the precinct representative, on the floor of town meeting. And once that happened, there was really no way to stop it. And that's really what a great part of the town meeting form of government is. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Sometimes I look at how great the amount of participation that this system allows for. You know, we have people in this town who volunteered for decades, who've done all kinds of great things for this town. In a mayor system, that opportunity might not be there because the whole mayor system is structured differently and not so dependent on volunteers. And I think that's a price the community pays. So I don't know.
I don't know the answer either. I'm throwing it out there, but I don't, honestly, do not know what works better. But I think that, when you see that the struggle of exchanging the leadership that the current system has and the demands on the select people that offer valiantly their time, it's pretty amazing what is expected of a volunteer, in community service. And, I think, for me at least, you honor your family first, and you have to keep devoting time to your family. And then how do you also employ yourself, unless you're lucky, born without a need for that, but you also have to employ yourself. And so family first, then your own economic well-being, and then you contribute. So it's just with all of the complexities, seems to me a pretty hard thing to do, to be a selectman.
Well, it's a lot of work. Yeah. It's also rewarding. It's when you can see some of the results, and when you get to work. Our staff, for example, in town is just phenomenal. The people who work in our town, and as a selectman, you get to work with those folks. When you get to see and work with police, fire, DPW folks, you really get to understand how dedicated they are to serving the people, and that focus is there. I mean, there really is a commitment. The kind of system we have allows citizens to do that. The mayor system, one of the things that concerns me about what's going on, participation, everything, is are people in communities becoming consumers of government instead of owners or participants in the government.
What an interesting phrase. And before I even think more about that, I want to make sure I make it clear. You gave me a list of things to talk about.
I was
the
asked.
mayor system wasn't on it.
No,
okay, I just want to make sure that wasn't your thought, just so anybody knew that. That's my curiosity about management. So I just want to, grant that out there very, very strongly. That as I do these interviews, I'm curious about government. I'm involved in government, and I'm hoping that we find this very efficient way of handling this very complex set of decisions that are made on our behalf. So that, just want to throw that out there. But so you had framed it a little differently. So run that by me again, the way you said that.
Okay, so are people now, with respect to government, seeing themselves as consumers of government? That is, I pay my taxes, I'm buying services, okay? I expect this, as opposed to the citizen role, which is, this is my government, I'm part of it, I participate. The decisions we make as a community are decisions I participate in and make. When they're consumers, when people view themselves as consumers of government, there's more, maybe, if you will, indifference to how things don't get better. When people view themselves as participants in government, which is what we see by the volunteers who we have in town, because the folks who volunteer, no matter what side they're on an issue, right? No matter, and folks who might see things differently from me, what you see in all of those is a commitment. This is my community, and I can have a voice, and I can make it better. What better means might be different, but I can make it better. And to me, that's a big difference between a system where it's removed, the direct participation is taken away because it's 2 and 3 levels away. You have a mayor who's elected every 4 years, as opposed to direct participation through a town meetings system. And I think that's an expense.
I'm really glad that you were able to kind of like lend some clarity there, because I will confess there's sort of a bias. I didn't expect to even think about it, but that I look at it more transactionally, that it's I'm a consumer of government. And I also do, I'm here, right? I also want to contribute my civic responsibility. But my view, to be very honest about, very candid, is it's a transaction for me. It's not, it's much of a, look, I'm paying the taxes. I expect it to be done well. I don't expect it to be picked up by the volunteers, even though I think that volunteers can step in and bring the whole process to a much better place. But there is a transaction to me, so I wonder what the public thinks. That's an interesting.
Let's take Station 1.
We may start a
Let's
good
take
conversation.
Station 1 as an example.
Okay.
If the citizens of Stoughton understood that appreciated more broadly than they do, that Station 1 is our station, meaning it's yours, it's mine, and you said, and I said, and the other people in this room said, I will not tolerate having my firefighters live and work in that building, because I expect to provide better for the people who are going to save my life than those conditions. We wouldn't have a building like that right now. It would have been taken care of 20 or 30 years ago.
You brought us to a very interesting point. But before we go on, I want to just jump over and get some of the broadcast stuff out there. So I'm going to give a reach out to Roy, and we'll get some PSAs. And Roy, you want to jump right in. I want to thank him, too.
Hi, it's Gary LaPierre, and the crew wants to thank Maxie's Delicatessen. That's at 117 Sharon Street in Stoughton. They're 781-341-1662. American Cancer Society. Yes, they're looking for volunteers. Drive cancer patients to and from their treatments. 1-800-ACS-6662. Or just go to www.cancer.org. Ilsa Mark's Food Pantry in St. Anthony's Free Market, 2 Park Avenue in Stoughton. For more information, call Christine Gallagher. That's at 781-341-0611 or 781-341-0549. Meals on Wheels. Just ask for Jessica. You'll find her at 781-344-8882, extension 2. Stoughton Penny Saver. Our business is advertising your business, they tell us. 27 Rose Glen Street, Stoughton, 781-344-4833. Community Forum showtimes in Stoughton. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m., Monday at 8 p.m., Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 28. All comments and suggestions welcome. Contact us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Samaritans, they're at 41 West Street on the 4th floor in Boston, 02111. Their phone number is 617-536-2460. 24-hour helplines for Samaritans, and the number is 877-870-HOPE. That's 877-870-4673. Samaritans, you can find them at 800-252-TEEN. That's 252-8336. Or find them online at SamaritansHope.org.
All right, so I'm here with Selectman Bob O'Regan, Stoughton Board of Selectmen, the chairman. And if you wanted to get a hold of Bob, Bob, give us that email. What is that?
So my email is most of my name, R. O'Regan without the apostrophe, at stoughton-ma.gov. That comes right to me in the Selectman's office.
Excellent.
And I have a dedicated line for Selectman work, and that rings right on my desk at home. That's 344-8209. If I'm not there to answer, leave a message. If a fax machine accidentally goes off, please try back later.
We've all had that fax machine. So I also want to announce for you, too, that on Monday Night Bingo, a Harvard Torah congregation, a fabulous congregation here in Stoughton, they support all faiths. That's at 1179 Central Street in Stoughton. Doors open at 4:30. The games start at 6:30. If you're a bingo fan, you're going to find a lot of compadres if you can go up there to the Harvard Torah congregation. We also want to mention the Stoughton's own Get Fresh cooking show. New episodes are coming all the time. Channel 9, Verizon Channel 28. And it's 5:30 p.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays at 8, Thursdays at 9 a.m., and Fridays at 5 p.m. All right. And also the Hometown Business Show. If you would like your business featured on Stoughton Media Access Cable, we have a new show called the Hometown Business Show. And we'll actually come down to your location, or you can come in here to studio, and we'll do a taping that you can share with the outer world, what it is you do. So that's on Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 28, Wednesdays at 11. I take that back, Tuesdays at 11, Wednesdays at 5:30, Thursdays at 8, and Sundays at 7 p.m. And well, we shouldn't go on much further without thanking all of the staff support we have at the show. And we've got Leo McGowan in the back. He runs all the cameras and keeps me in line, frankly. Roy is out back, Roy Cohen. And we get some help when we first set up. Jeff Pickett jumps around. Mike Hammond jumps around, tries to make sure that all of our cameras are working, our laptops are connected, and things like that. Dave Young steps in as well. Gina Coe is usually in the office, and she helps too. So we want to make sure we make mention of these guys. They're really... some are volunteering, some are actually staff, but we all make it happen. So I'm back with Bob. Bob, you've had a minute to kind of gather your thoughts. Let's focus the audience, if we could. Where's the Stoughton Selectmen Board going? And let's sort of just line it up and say, here's what we're going to do, guys, on your behalf, whether or not we're doing it as a transaction or not, or whether or not we're doing it as volunteers. So where are you?
We're going to come up with a coherent financial plan for the town. So we know going forward 2 and 3 years from now what our money picture looks like. So residents can look at what their tax bills are and understand the nature of services that they're getting, and it's worth it. Okay, that's it. And it's worth it.
You have to create value.
That's right.
Yeah, there's no question.
Part of the, we're going to enhance the value by looking at places in town where, with a little bit of investment, nothing in life is free, right? With a little bit of investment, we can get a greater return for the taxpayers. Case in point is the Park Street Sewer Project, okay? There is an opportunity for investment by the community in getting a sewer line down on Park Street from Campanelli Industrial Park. Mm-hmm. We have an industrial park there that is under capacity because they don't have sewer. What does that mean? Well, it means that there's dozens, maybe 100 or more jobs that could be available for Stoughton residents close to home that aren't there because the jobs can't go because they don't have sewer. What does it mean? It means that the businesses that are there aren't paying the kind of taxes they could and would because they don't have sewer. What does that mean? It means for the level of services that you and I and everybody else might want or need, homeowners pay more of a burden because we don't have anybody to share it with. If you're a resident or a business along Route 27, take the restaurant. Okay? We don't have the kind of quality sewage down there. So as the weather gets warm, we're going to smell what we don't want to smell, okay?
What we don't want to smell.
All right. Okay. And there's a public health issue there.
Yes.
Because sewage is really not good for health. So sewage
You think?
floating above ground is not good. If we fix that, the values of those properties goes up, our assessor has said, by a factor of 3. And if we look at how we're going to use it, the property owners there now, right, make value above whatever the investment might make. So it's a win-win for the town. That's the kind of thing that this board is looking at and committed to getting done. Because then that lets us do the kinds of stuff that people want done, which we can't now do. And we cannot go year to year hoping how much money is left over, if any, from last year in the piggy bank to cover this year's operations, which is where we are now. Those are the big things this board is going to pay attention to.
It's trying to create value with the limited resources you have and to create a situation where your resources are improving.
And part of that will be an ask to the community to allow us the tools we need to do it. Physically, it would be like the Armory space for swing space.
Right.
Physically, it would be like giving us some room to make green space, to make the downtown values grow because it's a happier place for all of us to live in. It's a destination.
All right, and we'll leave on that note. I want to thank you for coming out to share what the selectmen are hoping to get done.
Thank you.
Also want to make sure that we thank everybody in the back room, and I want to thank the audience for watching. We appreciate that you're paying attention to Stoughton Media Access Cable. My name is Steve Kelley. I'm from Community Forum, and thank you very much for watching.